Welcome everyone. Great. Thanks again, all of you folks who have joined us today. As all of you are curious, even in fact, we are equally curious and interested to know, how India is consuming content. What's working, and in the last few months, we've seen a plethora of products out in the market. Which are building content and engaging and enthralling users, right? And to do so, to learn more, we've invited Preeti Gupta from Ghana. She is a senior product manager at Ghana, and she has spent a lot of time there building a variety of content formats as products for these users. And eventually, to get them coming back more often, she's built, interesting gamification layers on top of them and tied them together. We are gonna hear more from Preeti soon as we get started. I am Harshad. I am your host today. I work on the developer platform at Truecaller, where Truecaller is one of the quick things as we get started. Folks, if you have any questions, feel free to ask us via the Q&A window that you can see on Zoom. If you're on Facebook, feel free to add us or ask questions on the Facebook chat. Or if you're on Twitter, feel free to tweet us at Truecaller Devs using hashtag #BuildForMobile. Right? The way we are going to go ahead is we will have Preeti come on board, share her thoughts, we'll chat with her and understand what's really happening and how they've been building it for these users. And I think once the initial thoughts and slides are over, we'll open up for more questions from you folks, right? So yeah, I think as we move ahead, I'm pretty sure all of you guys would know what Truecaller is. Truecaller has been powering efficient communication for millions of users over the last many years, right? And we are the world's best caller ID and spam detection platform, right? A lot of users use us on a daily basis to ensure that they are away from fraud and spam and are not bothered by unsolicited calls, which is increasingly a bigger problem in a lot of developing markets. Around the globe, we have more than 250 million users, but specifically, India is our home with more than 175 million users. And at the Truecaller developer platform, what we always try to do is ensure that the proposition of Truecaller of helping our end users and the community with a trusted and communication experience for all the users. We are trying to evangelize the same and try to solve the problem for the larger community by working with a lot of interesting startups and products out there. As I said, our core mission is to build trust everywhere by making the communication safe and efficient between users and businesses whom they interact and would love to communicate with. Just a fun fact, right? I will in fact not even go into counting the number of zeros, but these are the number of spam calls that we blocked and identified just last year, which kind of is equivalent to all 8 seasons of Game of Thrones viewed 2.3 billion times. So feel free to go ahead and keep doing the math, but yeah, I'm gonna keep you intrigued with those numbers. And as all we are building for these users, right? The entire product community out there, there is a strong realization or a reality that we all face today, that we are predominantly building for a mobile first world. The phenomena that we've started seeing over the last few years has grown so far that a lot of the developers and startups we work with see a humongous traffic coming on mobile, be it apps or be it websites, right? In fact, there are a lot of people out there who are building app only or mobile only interfaces. And with that, one thing that I think we all have seen or has evolved, specifically to a market, unlike Western markets and unique to India or near the developing markets, is mobile number is your identity today, right? You do anything in the real world. You want to watch something online, or you order food, or you're booking a cab, or you're doing any banking or government services. You are recognized online in your online world with number as an identifier, right? All of the experiences are tied with it. However, what we've seen is, when a lot of the products externally try to build these experiences for these users, the traditional mobile number authentication or identity is kind of broken, because a lot of times when you try to authenticate users, there are multiple drops. You need to take the users through multiple steps. OTPs does not come on time, and a lot of those challenges are there, and which is where we've set on a goal to solve it very efficiently for a lot of our product partners, and which is what we've been powering via Truecaller SDK for a period of time, which simplifies the entire experience in a one-tap flow via either a drop call or without any call or SMS whatsoever, because these users are already verified with mobile number. You can capture the map profile identity of the user, such as name, city, etc., in a completely user consented manner. And the great part of this being, I said, we are all solving for mobile first. We've also made it efficiently work across mobile sites and apps as interfaces. And a lot of startups out there are actually benefiting from it, are leveraging this platform. We have folks and leading apps in India, specifically to start with, across categories, using us as the primary mode of identity, and have seen great success with it. And we take pride that we are not only solving this for the product community out there, but eventually this is being solved for the end users, and which is the reason we have received a lot of love from the users as well as products alike, right? And we also are really happy, and we always keep on evolving, that we are one of the fastest sign up and login experience outside, right? This is predominantly a one tap, 3-second, 2-second process. The user just has to tap and go through, and there is no learning curve whatsoever, right? That has been one of the great reasons why we are now being used by over 800 developers and products in the market, and who trust us with primary identity for their apps, right? And what predominantly people are achieving is making their experience absolutely frictionless for their users, making their product quickly accessible to them, reduce their drops, login checkouts, and at multiple flows where they can use us, and drive positive sentiments, because then the user is not frustrated because few things are not working, because we've evolved a learning curve across all of these apps and have made it super simple for the users to get on board. And on top of that, verification via Truecaller SDK has been absolutely free, and that's been what we are evangelizing, and that helps a lot of startups to not only evangelize and reduce user drops, optimize the flows, but also save huge costs on verification, right? With the kind of base that we have in India, along with us powering even the non-Truecaller user flows, it really helps a lot of our startup partners, products to actually reduce their verification costs, and in fact invest that cost back again in user acquisition and drive growth. We take absolute pride in empowering these experiences for these users. And as I said, right, during one of those occurrences, while we were also working with Gaana as a leading product who wanted to optimize for their users, we in fact worked along with Preeti, who also implemented this at Gaana along with us. And then as that went through and saw some success, as we were discussing with Preeti on the newer trends that we're seeing in the market, we thought it would be a wonderful thing to invite her on board and share the thoughts with the larger community on what kind of trends she has herself seen while building for a lot of these users, apart from number being a key identifier which users now prefer to have. And apart from that, what are the trends that she has seen? Just a quick thing about Preeti. I think she will speak and talk more about it, but she has over 7 years of experience in product business strategy and analytics at various leading companies such as Gaana, eBay, and American Express, right? Specifically with her current stint at Gaana, right? She's involved in a lot of tracks and products where she has built them right from inception to a lot of market research to building their MVPs and crystallizing the initial success metrics. And along with that, have seen how to scale those products and engage more users along with it. Welcome, Preeti, and thank you so much for coming on board. And I'm sure the community is really excited and interested to hear you. But over to you now.
Hey, hi everyone. Great to be part of this panel, and thanks Harshad and Smriti for inviting me to this. Let me just present my screen and then we can begin with the presentation. Can you see my screen?
I think yes, we are able to.
Okay.
Yes, go on.
Okay. So hi everyone. As Harshad told about how we integrated with Truecaller, it actually made our life easier because the login is just with one step, and you really don't need OTP, and the delays which happen with SMS OTPs not getting delivered, and the success rate immensely increased. So we are thankful for that integration. Now moving on to my presentation on the new products. So in the last 6 months itself, we have seen some really interesting trends emerging, some because of lockdown and some because of the changing dynamics of this industry. So one of those was that TikTok got banned and it made national headlines. And so there was this void in the market which was created. So first of all, I like to talk about hot shots in the first part of my presentation. It's divided into three, and then I'll move on to gamification and live streaming. So coming back to Ghana Hot Shots. So I was going through the Q&A questions that.
Sorry to interrupt you. There is some prompt that is playing on your screen. If you could just dismiss that, so the screen is entirely visible then.
Oh yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So So as I was saying that there was a huge void created because of TikTok getting banned, and this is a huge space. Like even if we look at the daily active users, then TikTok has around 45 to 50 million daily active users, and this is like a highly engaging user base, not the general user base who just comes to the app for a second a day. They really engage with TikTok, and they create videos, they watch videos, and they are just addicted to the app. So even now, this screenshot which I am using here, this is yesterday's data only. So in the top 10 apps, if you notice, five of them are short video apps on Play Store, and this is overall across all the categories. This ranking. So and apart from these top five, if you look at this scenario, then there are so many small apps also which have come in this market, like Zilli, Trail, Bolo India, Ruposo, Mitro, Chingari, and even bigger players like Instagram and YouTube. YouTube have entered this market. I mean, Shorts is yet to release, but Reels is there. So yes, this is a huge market. And if I talk about what is so special in this market, then I have just pulled out two graphs for the usage stickiness for popular social apps as well as popular music apps. So if you would notice here, then the TikTok app's usage stickiness just breaks out of the curve. I mean, apart from WhatsApp, all the others are on this curve, and TikTok is just breaking away in terms of usage stickiness. And this metric signifies open rate rank, which is basically if your users have your app, how inclined they are to open the app and use it as well. And comparing it with music apps also, they don't have that kind of engagement, even though music is your daily part of life. So it made sense for Ghana also to venture in this market. One, like both the reasons are there. One is to occupy the sudden void of DAU and MAU, which were there for up for grabs for anyone who's there in that market. And secondly, they had high user stickiness, which makes sense for Ghana also. And apart from these reasons, like Ghana is already in contact with labels and creators and artists, so it just fell into the synergy for us. So I'll just give a brief overview of what the product looks like, so that it will be easier to understand when I talk about it in detail in the further slides. So if we look at this first screen, this is the main Hotshots launch screen. It comes as the third tab in the bottom navigation. And if you look at this, you have all these options to interact with the Hotshots videos, and you can scroll up and see the other videos and so on. Then there are few navigational screens like the trending screen, where you can see various sections, what sound clips are trending, what hotshots are trending, what are the users or the creators or influencers which are trending, and so on. Then there are some detail screens also around it, like you can see what are the various hotshots which are created for a particular soundtrack or a particular hashtag. And if you are a creator, you can see your screen like this, where you can see all the hotshots that have been created by you, and so on. So this is the creator tools. We have actually a lot of tools. We have voice effects, we have AI filters, we have some like text changes and normal stickers through which are powered through Jiffy, and some of our own stickers. And then you can also add like sound clips to your tracks. You can trim a song from Ghana's library of 10 million songs and just pick any song and crop it and use it as the background for your video. Um, then we also have search functionality where we allow users to search between influencers, various hashtags, sound clips, and so on. And we also give recent searches. And basically, this is the discovery tool where we allow users to get the top trending of any of these three categories, as well as search between the search among the huge pool which we have for the overall category. Then this is the following screen where you can follow the users that I'm sorry, I think we'll be taking the questions at the end. So I can see that some people are raising their hands. Sorry. Yeah. So Harshad, you want to see someone raise their hand?
Yes, sure, Preeti. Folks, if you folks have any questions or any comments, you can feel free to put it in the chat box. As we discuss, we'll first quickly go through the thoughts that Preeti wants to share along with the slides. I think once that happens, we are of course open to your questions. We're definitely gonna be doing that. But yeah, in the meanwhile, please put all of your questions or comments in the chat box. We'll collate all of them and answer as soon as we finish the slides. Perfect, Preeti?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Please go ahead.
Okay. So this is the following tab, and where you can follow the artists which are recommended by the algo to you and search for any other artists. Also, this is a challenge screen where whenever we have a challenge coming up, like if we want to just put up a challenge for Independence Day, then we can create these specific challenges where we can announce the winners also. So this basically acts like an engagement tool for us for getting more creators on board on our platform, because there are lucrative prize money to be won. Now coming back to okay, so this is the brief about the product. Now coming to how we developed this product. So in the middle of the night, TikTok was banned, and there was this huge product, and we were deciding where to launch it from. So this I just want to act as a guiding force on whenever you have to launch very complex products, how you can actually break them down into multiple phases and then launch it. So what we did was we first defined the MVP, and for us, since we already had we in Ghana have vertical videos on the player, so we had a good catalog of short videos already with us, which we just needed to portray in a TikTok-like fashion of scrolling up and doing multiple videos back to back. So this was the MVP phase one for us, that we need to have a platform which is very similar to TikTok, where users can come and watch short videos and swipe them up and watch the next video and so on. And we already had the video. So that was phase one of giving the videos the look and feel of a TikTok kind of platform. Second phase was to let creators come on this platform and create new content, which will give some incentive to the viewers to watch new videos of their favorite influencers. So we needed to have good creator tools in place. By creator tools, I mean all the functionalities of creating a video. It could be trimming and reordering multiple snippets, or adding some editing effects like text editing, stickers, or adding voice effects, changing the background, and so on. So these were the creator tools. Then phase 3 and 4, I just combined it because we had one release every week. So, so that by the end of 4 or 5 weeks, we were able to have most pieces of the product in place. So phase 3 was adding the additional ecosystem elements, which is like letting users who are there to listen to music also be able to discover hot shots, or adding additional functionalities like search or the following tab, or challenges, which is to woo the creators. And once the basic product was in place with phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 to completion, we moved on to phase 6, 7, 8, 9, which are the current phases, which are all about metric improvement after identifying the gaps and working more towards having the perfect product in place. So why I wanted to talk about this in today's presentation was because a lot of times we come across product problems in our product stints, where we have to create a huge product and we don't know where to begin from. And here, as you could see, the time to market was really important because TikTok was banned and there were so many products which were coming out every day, and we had to have the product in place as soon as possible, to be able to occupy some of the market share, which we successfully did also. So this is the important piece here, that when you have to launch a very complex product, and time to market is also important, factoring in you would have limited bandwidth because you cannot create the perfect product all at once. So how you can do that is you can break it into multiple phases, define what is really important to go out in phase 1, and then build on it subsequently. So I'll talk about the metric improvement phase also briefly. So let's suppose you have built your MVP and now you want to go ahead towards improving it. So how can you prioritize out of the 100 things that you have to do, which ones to do? So I would suggest you can list down all the product or roadmap items that you have in one Excel, and you can define which metric it would improve. Like for example, for a product like Hot Shots, the metrics which could be the target for a PM could be the D1 retention, or the percentage of users who are watching Hot Shots, or the number of short videos watched per user, or the number of short videos created per user, right? These are just some examples, and each PM could be owning different key metrics. But if these are your target metrics, then you can define that, okay, this is task number 1. This is the impact that it would have. Like it would improve my D1 retention by 5%, and it has an effort of 5 man days, and so on. You can provide all the metrics for all the details for these tasks, and then you can just sort them by the impact that they would create and give the priority basis that. So this would really help in defining your subsequent sprints once your initial sprints have been closed and your initial product is in place. Moving on to recommend. Okay, so for a product like Hot Shots, the recommendation is really important because the user is not moving away from the screen. The user is just on one screen, and whatever videos they see on that screen makes or breaks the experience for them. If I were to compare it with the music listening experience on Gaana, then in music experience, if you don't like a song, on the app you can see various songs, and then you can see what songs are there next in the queue. You can remove the songs from the queue and so on. But if I now come back again to Hot Shots, there's just one screen. You like it or you don't like it. You don't have an option to change the feed that you are getting. You can skip it, you can choose to ignore it or dislike it, but you cannot actually move away from that screen. So I'll just talk about few of the metrics that we have to consider while defining the recommendation engine for a product like Hot Shots. So first of all, if I'm a user and the way I'm interacting with the video, if we take that into account, we can understand the user's pattern a bit better. Like what are the videos that they are interacting positively with? Are they liking it, sharing it, commenting it, follow? And are they clicking on create? Like if I like a video and I click on create, then it would use that sound clip for creating a video of my own. So that maybe gives me some insight into that, okay, the user likes this kind of sound clips to create videos on. So maybe I should give more of these kind of videos to this user. Then there could be negative interactions, like the user does not view it completely, the user skips the video, or the completion rate of this video is very low. So if the completion rate for a particular video is very low, it should basically go down in the algorithm for all the users and not just this particular user. But if the completion rate of a video is pretty good, pretty average, but only a particular set of users don't like that video and they skip it, then maybe we can remove that particular kind of videos from this particular set of users, but we don't need to give them negative rating for the complete set of Ghana users. Then coming to video specifics, like what is the language of the video, what is the quality of the video, what is the genre or category. And let's suppose I'm a new user and you have videos about comedy or dance or maybe makeup tutorials and so on, and you give me 2 videos of each category, and I interact more with videos of a particular category. Let's say I interact more with dance videos and I just ignore the normal comedy videos. Then you know about me as a user that okay, we should give more of dance videos to this particular user. So these kind of uh, video specifics help in reordering or define the algorithm of those particular user set. Then we also have creator inputs. Like there are some creators, even if their videos are very normal, but they get a lot of love from the users. They get a lot of likes or shares, and they are just basically very popular creators. So we also need to understand that if a user is following a particular creator, then we should give them all the videos of that creator because they have explicitly followed that creator. Then other things to take note of are the general trends. So like you would have heard about it, TikTok also used to talk about it, that there is a problem of filter bubble. For example, you are defining for a particular set of users, they should only be getting videos and they should not be getting XYZ other videos. But that also gives a inherent problem of discovery, that you are restricting the content too much and they might not be able to discover other content. So recency or trending hashtags, they are also very important. Like if I don't like Independence Day videos, but Independence Day is really trending right now because it is 15th August, then maybe I should show a couple of videos of Independence Day also to this particular user, because otherwise I will be restricting them from knowing that okay, this is what is trending on the app right now. Recency is also important because that is how you can find out which are the trending patterns. It could be that suddenly a new song has come up and all the creators are creating videos on that particular new song itself. Then you should be able to identify that this is the new song that everyone is really creating videos on and the viewers are also watching. So maybe promote that song for creators as well as viewers, both type of users. Then there could be other parameters which you could factor in, like no 2 videos by the same art, like 2 videos by the same artist should not be back to back. There should be some gap between videos of the same artist or on the same song. And then if you have videos of various quality, then the user should be getting a good mix of all qualities of videos. Then coming to video considerations, so some of the things to consider are caching. Like if you are having 10 videos, then how many of them you can cache based on the bandwidth consumption which you can take from the user's network. Then if the videos uploading is not that fast, then how can you manage it for the user, that they also understand that okay, the video is uploaded but it is pending for review, or that it is already it is not uploaded yet but it is pending state. You need to communicate it clearly so that the user is also aware of what to expect, when to expect their video to go live. Then there could be a difference between the quality of viewing versus downloading. If you are allowing the users to download the video, then they have to be of better quality as compared to the quality of viewing, because in viewing you have network constraints, but in downloading you can take some time to download a better quality video. At least that's what we do in Ghana. The downloading video is better in the BPS as bits per rate, bits per second, as compared to the viewing quality. Then the encoding formats or the codecs, which ones to use, which are better suited to your platform. Then one interesting problem which we solved at Ghana was that if you have a bigger video of let's say 60 seconds, we usually, I mean, this is how we do, we break it into segments of 10 seconds each. That is how we do it for songs also, so that you can buffer the next segments when the current segments are playing and so on. But if the video is, let's say, 61 seconds long, then how do you handle the last 1 second? Because it usually breaks the flow of the video, and it was corrupting the files for us somehow. So we used a group of pictures alignment, so that the last 1 second is taken as a group of pictures, and it can be queued up to the after the 66 segments of the 60 seconds video. That is how we solved it, and these are some of the considerations there. Then, okay, one interesting thing which I wanted to talk about was a communication plan for this product. So if I were to just focus at creators, and if the target metric for me is how to increase the number of creators and the number of videos created per creator, then uh, so for that I divided the creators into 5 categories. One is the users who have created at least one video. For these category of users, we already know that they have created videos, and they are also earning some gems, which is another currency which I talk about in gamification. So we can give them a daily digest of, okay, you have earned 100 gems, and maybe if you follow these trends or create videos on these hashtags, then you can earn more gems, that they are also aware of what their performance is. And we can break it into this category further into buckets or basis the number of views that they receive on their videos. Like if you are getting less than 10 views, then you might be interested in and knowing about each view as and when it happens. So the frequency of the notification could be instantaneous, that okay, you have received one new view from this user. And if the frequency, if the number of views is very high, like if you're getting more than 5,000 views on your video daily, then maybe just 2 notifications clubbing all the views received in the last 12 hours is enough. It's more than enough, instead of bombarding with 5,000 notifications in a day. So this is how we broke the categories of the users who were falling in the buckets of those users who have at least one video. Then coming to category B of additional notifications to users who have created a video, but there are no views on those videos. So basically they are like really very new users. So to them, we can talk about in the notification that we send to them, we can talk about the trending hashtags, that, hey, these are the trending hashtags, or these are the trending filters. If you create a video where you do particular follow a particular trend, then you are more likely to get views on those videos, and so on. Or we can talk about, hey, if you share your video, then you will be able to get more views on from your network. You can share your video on WhatsApp and so on to get more views on your videos, so that you can get started there. Then there are users who don't have any videos created. We could further break them down into users who have created a video but not published it, it's still in drafts, or users who clicked on the camera button but did not actually create a video. So the communication could be to tell them that, okay, hey, if you do this, then you will earn some extra bucks through gems, and this is what others are doing, maybe you can also do the same, and so on. So this is the communication plan just for the creators. Similarly, we can create a communication plan for the viewers. Now, if you would notice here, the communication plan was very direct, and it kept in mind what are the major target metrics or the areas that we are looking at. So, for example, if I was to focus at the creator metrics, how many percentage of creators out of the normal users create videos, or what is the total number of videos created per user, then I would create my communication plan like this. If I were to focus on viewers, then maybe I would tell them about the new happening videos that have been released on the platform, maybe by the users that they follow, or by some really great artists, some popular artists. So that is how the viewers communication plan would be very different. So yeah, I think this is all I had about hotshot videos. Now I will be moving to gamification. So I do have an analytics and business strategy background also, which has helped me, basically give some, analytics power to my projects whenever I take up any project. So in this gamification part of my presentation, I would try to give a flavor of that how can you create a business plan or the ROI plan for any product that you take up, so that it gives you an end-to-end understanding of how you can pitch a product. Like, let's say you have an idea, how can you create a product from there, because it has to be business, it has to be financially viable for the business to take it up, right? So let's go more into detail as we go further down in the slides. So first of all, what is gamification, and why do apps engage in gamification? So gamification is also one of the product features, which is also designed to meet a goal, a particular target that you have. And it is with the effect that, okay, your product is already good, and all the effort that you are doing is going to get incremental values from it, but the user is not discovering those particular features. So gamification is more about building a habit by providing hooks to the users so that they can create a habit out of out of using those hooks. And it is also more fun and engaging for a user as compared to the normal tutorials that usually apps give, like course marks and all. I mean, they are necessary, but it is one step beyond that. This is gamification is not a loyalty program, and it is not an incentive plan. So like, one of the better books to study more about gamification is Hooked. And Hooked talks about this hook model, which basically means that the user gets some external or internal triggers. They perform an action, and based on that action, they get a variable reward. Because of the variable reward, they do some investment, and this loop continues. Then they get some other trigger. This trigger does not have to be provided by you again. This could be an internal trigger also. So this is how the loop works. Basically, it is, you are trying to get the user into this loop. You don't want the user to just do it once and then just get out of the system. You are creating a hook, a loop, in which the user tends to fall after following your hooks for a couple of times. So this is what the habit formation looks like. Like, suppose first of all your initial hooks were, let's say, some ad, some display ad, or word of mouth, or maybe some notifications, some alarm, some tweet, some external mail, or some message that they received from their friend. And that is how they entered into this loop, because of that external trigger of the marketing that you did. Maybe, let's say, for Ghana's case, let's say I sent a push notification announcing this particular gamification feature. Then the action by the user would be to click on that notification, perform the step, whatever that expected the user to do. Based on that, the user would get a variable reward. It could be in the form of coins, or it could be in the form of badges, or it could be anything else also. It could be unlocking some new feature that, okay, only those users who have performed this action can shuffle their playlist. The rest cannot. They have to listen to the songs in that particular order only. Then this is the investment by the user, where they are like, they have to do something to get that award, and then they fall into this loop. So the internal triggers are basically emotions, spaces, habits, or routines that because of the loop that the user has entered, then you don't have to give external triggers. The user gets into a habit, and their internal triggers can also trigger those particular habits. Okay, so like we talked about that particular loop where you do some action and you get some reward, and then you have a motivation or internal trigger, or some investment by yourself to perform that action again. This is one loop. This is the engagement loop. This is the basic loop. But what you would also want to do in your gamification model is to take the user from simpler step to a more complex step. For example, let's say creating a playlist and listening to that playlist is a very complex step. But if I were to first of all make the user comfortable with creating playlists, then make the user comfortable with adding songs to that playlist, and then make the user comfortable with listening to their playlist songs, then I can actually progress them to the final step. So basically, instead of a circle, it becomes a spiral that you take them to a higher level each time they enter into that loop. This is like really important because you cannot make the user do everything in the first go, but you do want them to reach a particular level. If you relate it to normal games, you have levels in normal games, and each like if you play any game on your app, like it's something very simple, like Subway Surfer. Then also like, or even Candy Crush, which was really popular some years back. So even in those games, in each level, you would see that some complication is added. It's not as simple as the previous level was. So it's the same funda which is applied in the progression loop. So this is the progression loop, this is an engagement loop. So in the progression loop, you basically take the user to a higher level of complexity, and the main objective is to make the user reach the final level. And it could be important if the goal which you have in mind, let's say the goal is that you have to increase the users retention on the platform, and you have seen through data that users who listen to songs from their own playlist, because they have invested that amount of time in creating their playlist and their own selection is definitely better suited to them than anything that you can provide to them, then their retention increases. So then you can basically make the user go through this progression loop so that they can finally be comfortable with creating playlists and just increase the retention as a byproduct of that. So before I go further into building out the model for gamification, I will just take you through the slides of how it currently looks on Gaana, the gamification feature, so that you have an idea and you can relate to it before we move on to further slides. So this is how you can see the coins that you have and the vouchers that you can get. So it's very important that users, whenever they are earning something, they should be aware that, okay, what is it that I am getting out of it? Okay, you are giving me 100 coins, that's fine, but what is coins? What do I get out of it? So it's important that that communication is also very clear that, okay, this is what you might get if you, redeem these coins. Then on the homepage itself, like you can see your balance, it says 4,000 coins. This is the kind of notifications that you get whenever you earn something. This is the coin balance screen where you can see how all you can earn the coins. This is a daily bonus streak. You have completed this much is left. You have 20% completed the favorite song mission, and this much is left. If you completed, you earn 50 coins, and so on. And then this is the my badges. Like if you are, let's say, top fan of Arijit Singh, you will get Arijit Singh top fan badge here. And if you are like a devotional music listener, you can get a devotional music badge, and so on. Then there's this earn section where you can see what you have already earned. Like, okay, I have earned 100 coins, which says welcome to the Gaana family, create a playlist, play a song, and so on. Then I can also, these are some of the screens which come, like if you want to refer a friend, then you get a screen like this where you can click on this and it opens the share window. These are the kind of badges that we provide to the user. The users can share the badges also with their friend where this entire image goes. Yeah, so if we want to let the user know that, okay, you have already earned this many coins and you can now redeem and win something exciting. So this is the kind of actionable notification that we give. Then this is the redeem coin screen where you can see various categories of vouchers that we have, and sort by various filters based on the coin value and recency and trending and so on. If you click on any if you click on any voucher on redeem now, then you get this kind of a screen where you get the coupon details, and if you click on redeem, then you get the redeem voucher which you can copy and use elsewhere. This is one of the interventions which is there, that just for coming on the app for the first time, congratulations, welcome to Gaana, and you can collect the coins. so that the user knows, okay, this kind of feature exists and they are inclined to explore it. This is the daily bonus, which is more like what you have on games, that if you come every day, let's say for a week regularly on the app, then you stand a chance to win additional bonus coins. This is more from perspective of increasing the visits per user. And okay, so I'll talk about some of the actions and missions that we have built on Gaana. So first is play song, because that is the bread and butter for us. We want users to play more and more songs. So once the user completes playing a song, they get to know that, okay, for every song you have just completed played a song, and you earn 5 coins for that. And if you play more songs, you stand a chance to win more coins. Similarly, we do want that users have longer and longer sessions. So we want them to play 3 songs. So after playing one song, the next level that comes in that particular mission is you play 3 songs in a session and you get additional coins. And if you play 5 songs, you get more, and so on, like 5, 10. And then similarly, such kind of missions are built out for favorites, playlists, registrations, welcome, daily streak, which I just talked about. This one, you have day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and so on. And then, so these are the missions that are targeting. The first section is the missions that are targeting engagement. Second is more around retention. And third is more around virality. Like you can refer the app to some of your friends or share the music and lyrics card, etc. Other features that are there. And you can share them with your friends and earn something basis those actions. So talking about the rewards could be of 4 types. Based on like the actions could be of 4 types, and those 4 could define the rewards that you are getting. So first is the task non-contingent reward, which means that you don't really expect the user to do something. You are just giving them the reward. And these are mostly to introduce maybe the concept of rewards, or it could be for anything else. Like for Gaana, it is very simple. If you first time launch the app, then you get the reward. So when the user is launching the app, then they're not aware that, okay, they have to do something to get the reward. So it is a non-contingent reward because they did not do something specifically to earn the reward. And if you look at this, even though they did not do anything, but they still have to click on collect now to be able to actually get the coins. Otherwise, if they dismiss it, they will not get the coins. Then second is engagement contingent, which is basically that you are doing something, you are starting a step and then you get a reward. So for example, if you just tap on play a song, then also this reward category would be fulfilled. Then the third is completion contingent of mission, which means that okay, let's say if I talk about starting a song itself, then starting a song will not do it. If the song is 3 minutes long, you have to listen to the complete song, only then you become eligible for that particular reward. And the fourth is performance contingent, which is that, okay, you have listened to the song also, you have completed that step also, but it has to be at a particular level. The quality of the step also matters a lot. For example, let's say there are some songs which we are promoting on Gaana, and if you listen to those promoted songs, only then you get this much coins, otherwise you get half the coins. I mean, something like that. It's not relevant in Gaana's case because we did not make anything performance contingent, but it could be popular, it could be relevant to you. For example, in the normal games in apps, basis what scores you get, you can unlock something, right? You can unlock maybe a different skin or a different background for the game and so on. So it is taking that a particular theory also into action here. Okay, so now that the basics of gamification are covered about actions, rewards and all, I'll talk about how do you actually build a plan on it. This is how you calculate the initial cost that you might you would incur in the project. For example, if I'm saying that basis the coins that you have, you can maybe redeem Gaana Plus vouchers or third-party vouchers or some concert passes and so on. Then you can assign a price to these basis whatever their market value is. You can also assign a cost to company. For example, maybe you are getting a voucher or a concert pass which is priced at 1,000 rupees, but because of your bulk buying, you can get it for 500 rupees. So you would put 1,000 rupees here and 500 rupees here in the cost to company. Then coins required. So you have to assign a value that, hey, if the value to me, if the cost to company is 500 rupees, then I can provide it for, let's say, 500 coins to the user. Then a user's perceived value, which is the coins required divided by the rupees of the user price. So the cost to company to rupees ratio could vary based on how much discount you're able to crack. But ideally, the user's value, which is the coins divided by rupees, should remain kind of constant or in the similar range for all the products that you are putting up on your platform. Then you could also calculate the eligible MAU. Like, let's say you need 1,000 coins to buy the concert pass, and you also have cohorts of how much activity your users do on the platform. By that I mean, like, let's say for collecting 1,000 coins you need to listen to 200 songs based on 5 coins per song, and only, let's say, 20% of Ghana's user base listens to more than 200 songs in a week. So I know that the eligible MAU is only 20%. Then out of all the users who earn the coins, not everyone might be redeeming them. So you can take a further redeem percentage on top of that, and that is how you can build up the final cost for a particular line item. And so on, you can add various other products also. Then this is how you can build up the cost. And if they are not, these are the tangible rewards. If there are some intangible rewards like a badge or something for which you are not giving actually anything monetary, but it is still a reward to the user, then maybe there you don't need to add cost. But if you are giving something tangible and you are incurring a cost for it, you should account for it in your model. Then talking about the benefits. If you are to give the ROI, then you need to know both sides of the coin, which is the cost as well as the benefits. So what are the potential benefits? For example, for my project, the potential benefits would be that, hey, if I am making the user spend more time on the app, then maybe I can get more ad revenue by increasing the plays per user or by increasing the session time. Or I can save marketing cost by improving the retention by 1%, or by increasing the number of referral downloads, because I'm also incentivizing the users to share the app with their friends. Also, it might also help in increasing the subscription revenue, because I am giving Ghana Plus trial packs, Ghana Plus subscriptions also as part of the vouchers, which is an internal product. And once the subscription expires, then those users might also come into the subscription funnel. So these are some of the factors that were relevant for my project. But if you are also simply planning to work on something similar, then there could be other parameters which make more sense for the business model that you are in from the cost and benefit point of view. And then this is how you can calculate the total benefits minus total cost to calculate the net cost. And you can maybe, project it for Q1, Q2, Q3, and the entire year, and so on. This is how long the project is going to run. So this was all about Ghana coins. Now there is one more game which I worked on, which is Ghana Antakshari. So this is more of a proper game instead of gamification principles applied to a normal music app product like Ghana. So this is Ghana Antakshari, which is a Google Assistant AOG, action on Google, which is available on Google Home, and even on your Android phone you can test it out by playing by saying talk to Ghana Antakshari on the voice assistant. So here, like, it's a proper game. You sing out a song, and then the ending letter is given to the action on Google, like the Ghana Antakshari game. The game plays out another song for you, and then you have to start again singing a song from the ending letter, and so on. Like, for example, it says that you have to sing a song from the letter H, and so on. And here we don't give any tangible rewards. but we do give Antakshari champion badge, or if like you are at the gold level, then gold badges, bronze badges, and so on. So what this helps in doing is in increasing the retention rate. So this was also launched in 3-4 phases. The first phase had Hindi support only, then English support, and then in the third phase we introduced this gamification. Now what this gamification, even though it was not there earlier, but what it really helps is in that users uh, tend to come back more on this platform because they want to beat their own previous score, or they want to beat others score. So like right now, if I had scored 4 in the previous game, I have an incentive to come back again on this game and get a score of 10 or a score of 5, right? So you are competing against yourself, and you are also competing to get these badges, even though this badge might not mean anything to us or to anyone else. But for the user, it becomes important that they can flaunt it. Hey, I'm a Ghana Antakshari champion. So this really helped us improve the retention rates, and now we are number one game on Google Actions in India in the gaming category. Yeah, so this was about Ghana Antakshari. Then coming to gems and hot shots. So like I talked about hot shots, that we are giving some incentive to the creators to create more videos. If I talk about the market scenario, then there is a particular set of influencers which were popular on TikTok, and which every platform wants to get on their platform. And now these top influencers are mostly present on all of these apps that are there in the market. Like you would find the same top influencers on all the 10 apps that you go to. But we do want other players who are exclusive to Ghana. So this is a pura concept designed to get some lower ranker influencers create great content. So how we did it was like, this is how maybe you can do the math here. You can categorize the top influencers into various categories based on the ranks. The ranks could be based on the number of videos views that they get on the videos that they put out. Then you can take total influencers in each category, total videos created by them, plays per influencer or plays per video. And if you were to assign a value of, let's say, for every view that you get, I will give you 3 gems. Or for every like that you get, I will give you 5 gems. For every share that you get, I will give you 10 gems. You can define your, math around that basis. What are the most important metrics for you? Like, for example, if you think that the retention rate of a user increases immensely if they like a video, or the growth effect or the network effect increases immensely if they share that video with their partners or with their friends, then you would focus at the share as the feature that you want the users to use more. So uh, basically what I'm trying to say is that whatever are the underlying actions or mission that you put in your gamification model, they will all tie up with what you want to increase in terms of numbers. Then once you have defined that, okay, I want to base my model around views, likes, and shares and followers, then you can give a value to each of these and finalize what is the total payment that you would need to give out to an influencer from category A or to category B and so on. And then the total payment for that category is there. Yeah, this is about gamification. Moving on to live stream. So, okay, this is the fun stuff. Did you guys know that BTS banked $20 million from a single online concert, which happened in just June only? And they broke a Guinness World Record because of this concert. Like nobody has earned this much from an online concert. So this basically tells you the power of online concerts. More so with the COVID times and lockdown times that we are in, more and more online things which used to happen offline will make sense. For example, this webinar itself, earlier it would have happened in a physical space, but now we are having it online because of the lockdown times. So I mean, if you look at the industry which is there currently, if you want to host a live, you would go to any of these platforms like YouTube Live, Facebook Live, or through Zoom. Like currently also we are having the session on Zoom, and the session is also streamed live on Facebook. These are platforms that are enablers kind of. Then these are the platforms which help you with your ticketing stuff also. Like Book My Show is there, Paytm Insider is there. You could host your, a concert on any of these or event on any of these. But if you look at the apps that are really doing well, or not doing well per se, but are in this space and are trying to do something different, then Kiswe is the app on which this BTS show was hosted. And if you look closely, it allowed the artist to change the background to give a very concert type of feel. Like this one has red curtains, this one has disco lights, and so on. So they are doing like good innovative work. Then Twitch is there, which is the kind of the only platform for having a gaming live stream. Then on Ghana also we have recently introduced live streaming. It is a very nascent product. TikTok used to have some live stream sessions. Disney Hotstar, you can see IPL live and you can see people commenting and sharing on that. And then there are some new players also coming up in this space. If I talk about Kispi, on which the BTS show was hosted, then in this one, basically it allows you so many different features. Like it gives you the proper feel of a live music concert. So here you can select that, hey, I want to view this concert from this angle, camera 1, camera 2. They have multiple angles. Like if you are having a concert, you can shoot it from various angles, and then as a user I can select that which angle I want to look at it from. It would make a lot of sense in something like cricket also, maybe because in cricket you also would want to maybe view the event from some other angle, look closely at the pitch, at the ball or something. So that would make sense there also, and it could be applied in various other genres. Then in this app you can see what are the featured concerts, and then once you have registered and paid for it, you need to enter the ticket code so that the paid events are also easily managed. And you can create your own hang, which is basically a private room where you can invite your friends or family to listen to you or someone else performing. So you can have basically private events also. The hosting part is basically also very simple. The viewing part is also very simple. Similarly, so these apps are already very popular in Southeast Asia. This was Kiswi. This is another example, which is Jukes. And here also, like you can see, like they have so many live shows happening every day. You can see here 75,000 people are watching a live show of this particular band. 65,000 are watching Jonas Blue, and exclusive interviews are there. You can have live chat, and you can go to backstage. You can look at the original programs, and these are the upcoming live schedules. You can register for this particular broadcast. And if you want to set up a reminder, you can do that also. And once you go into the show, you can chat and interact with others who are part of that particular show. This is from Twitch. Twitch is again a platform which allows you to stream live your game. I have just taken a screenshot of the music part, but they are really good in the gaming side. Like you would see that Among Us is there, and Fortnite is there, Counter Strike is there. So you can have basically a virtual gaming room, and others can join in and play with you, and just watch your game. So yeah, so coming to the why part, why live streaming is very important. It's because in the COVID times, you want safety, and you don't want to step out in the physical world. Also, you can have wider reach. For a concert happening in US, someone from India can also join. Lower cost, of course, because you're not doing event management, you're not having a big physical space to manage the crowd and so on. And you can actually add some AR VR features to give a more real world feel. Then coming to the product tech or business decisions on how to create a product like this, you can either host this app or you can once the ticketing and registration is done, you can transfer the users to a third party app. For example, you can create the event on let's say LinkedIn, and then transfer the users to Zoom to attend that particular concert. Then you can use some third party SDK or build it in house. Then this is really interesting. So what we did at Ghana was we were using a third party SDK, and it takes a lot of time. So it increases the size of the app immensely if you have it integrated in the app and you put it on Play Store. And the size of the app actually helps determine how many downloads you are going to get on your app. The lower the size of the app, the higher number of downloads you get. I mean, it is also one of the factors on Play Store. It is better if you have a smaller app size. And also, not everyone on Ghana might be using the live stream feature. Only those who are interested in watching their favorite artist live would go there and do that. So you can have a dynamic SDK download. So you can download this SDK only for those users who click on one of the events, who interact with one of the events and are like setting up a reminder or actually go to watch an event. You can dynamically download the SDK for those. Then why would you do something like this? So one factor could be monetization. You might want to do this to get better monetization, which you can get by basically putting up ticketing before entering the event, or you can allow users to give some gifts to the artist who's performing. That okay, everyone can attend it for free, but let's say I can give small amounts of money like 10 rupees by buying something like a virtual gift. Like I can buy let's say a teddy bear and gift it to the favorite artist by virtually paying for it to the app. Then there are also decisions around do you want to allow pre-recorded sessions only, or do you want to users to go live, or both. Then how do you make it more real time by taking live elements or feedback from users? Maybe you can while users are attending that session, you can give something on the screen like a poll or something, and based on the responses from the users, you can change the direction of the change the course of that particular event. Like midway, you can give them an option, hey, do you want me to perform red or blue? And based on number of responses that you get, you can choose whether you want to perform red or blue in the rest of the session, and so on. I mean, because it's digital technology and everything is open, everything is doable now, so you can select what you want to do there. This is how the live streaming product looks like on Ghana. You can interact, you can share hearts, you can share emojis, you can comment, and you can share what you want to talk to with the artist. It makes sense for Ghana because there are so many listeners who want to connect with their favorite artists, and it also gives a chance to new and budding artists to monetize their fandom by conducting live shows and getting some virtual gifts from their favorite from their fans. This is how the artist can conduct their event. They can just enable it from here, enable some of the options like comments or questions and go live request, so that someone wants to go live with you, and then the event is created and it appears on the app. Yeah, so this is it from my side. I think we can move on to the Q&A session.
I think that's really amazing, Preeti. I think very good view on what all has been happening at your end, and I think also that also gives all of us an idea on how users are engaging with each kind of content types, right? So as we get started, Preeti, right, I think a lot of people are interested to understand that Ghana being a song online streaming platform, right, which has been in its lot of journey, and then eventually a lot of these new products coming in. What is the core business model at a very overview or outset? What is the business model that Ghana has or follows? And if so, or accordingly, how and why do these products kind of fit in the overall strategy or the product fit?
Okay, So, like any other app, so first of all, we are in music space,
Right.
and traditionally we have been trying to experiment in the music space with first of its kind products. Like in the Indian space, we were the first ones to launch original podcast, which is an additional step as compared to having just music, right? And Ghana did a lot of experiment with Ghana Originals, which is its own set of music. So we have been kind of an industry leader when it comes to the Indian music space specifically. And the thought process behind what Ghana has been doing in the last 1 year would be that we want to be like a super app in music, where we have everything which is related to music on the platform. And some of the products that we launched recently indicate towards that direction. So for a product like Ghana to have something like Hotshot, the main reasons were to capture the DAU, which was just floating around in the void, and to increase the engagement. And also we are mainly focusing on music videos where some music is playing in the background, so as to enhance the music experience of just listening to the music to having the videos also while you are listening to the music.
Got it. And I think from that outset today, for example, I think you do have a premium subscription, right? And so does the premium subscription give users something more as well apart from...
Sorry, I am not able to hear you properly. Or can you...
Preeti, am I audible now?
Sorry, I think I'm losing some connection. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Can you try speaking now?
Yes. Is this any better?
I think I lost you. Yeah, you can say now. You can.
Sure. So yeah. So as I was saying, right, because premium has been one of few things that Ghana has been posting for a while. So what all things do users get under premium, and are any newer products also packaged under that? For example, you said a lot of creators are able to monetize their fandom, right? Is it open to all, or is it something for pro users? Like how you place that?
Yeah, so some of the products are definitely going to go behind the monetization bucket, monetization wall. Like for example, this product which I talked about, live streaming, we do plan to have some of ticketed events also there, some big scale ticketed events there, so that only those who pay for it can go through it. But yes, I think it's not finalized yet which of these will go behind payment, and do we give special access to those who already have Ghana Plus subscription and all.
Got it. Makes sense. I think that pretty much answers. And, I think a lot of people are actually curious to understand Hotshot story, right? So one of the questions that has come in is, how did the challenge piece in Ghana Hotshot perform? Did you probably observe better quality content or better engagement as compared to
Sorry, if you can just give me 1 minute, I just get my earphones. I'm not able to hear. Just
No
give
worries,
me one.
no worries. Absolutely fine.
Can you say something now?
Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I was saying that, everyone and a lot of folks here are pretty curious on the Hotshots bit. So one of the questions that has come in is, if at all we have the data or insights as of now, but how did the challenge piece in Ghana Hotshot perform? Did you observe any better quality content or better engagement as compared to normal videos?
Yes. So definitely, first of all, whenever we put out a challenge, then it is for a particular hashtag. When those things happen, then users are first of all inclined towards creating videos on those. So some first-time users were also there who created videos. And secondly, because money is on the line, So people definitely create better videos in terms of quality and content also. Yeah, that's there. They become creative with the videos that they create.
Got it, got it. And I think with that, I think challenge aspect also probably adds to the virality of the overall hashtag, you would say, because probably as a user, I might want to go ahead and do a challenge either individually or with my friends, or in fact, also share it much more socially.
Right, right.
Interesting, interesting. One more thing which has come in is if at all we have an answer as of now, but how did you go about, acquiring the initial set of creators, and is there some reward-based system that you have in terms of increasing the engagement with creators as well, or involvement of creators? Yeah, if at all we have something here.
Yeah. So, okay, the initial set of creators were acquired through agencies. There are some agency aggregators in India who have, tie up with all these top influencers, and we had direct contracts with some of the other folks.
Right,
And yes, we do have an incentive plan, which I covered in the gems section, which
right.
basically incentivizes the creators to create better content and more content.
Got it. Got it. I think that pretty much makes sense. Uh, One more thing I think which has come up is do you have something like a change of interest in the recommendation system? For example, basically, if a user is interested in comedy shorts, then after some time is watching, let's say, action or romantic videos, something like that, then how do you go about it? Like, do you recommend based on recency or interest, or if you could put some light on it in case we have any data on it?
Yeah, so I covered that also actually during the presentation on how we do the recommendation. So yes, so if someone is interested in watching Bollywood videos, then we would understand the interest question by the positive or the negative interaction that the users performs with this like particular category, and negative interaction with other categories, and then we would promote this particular category of videos to the users.
Got it. Got it. I think that pretty much helps. Uh, One, I think I wouldn't say off the shoot actually, but someone is curious to understand how does the Ghana team test out new features or products which may not be completely developed, or how do you test them or go about them to move into market?
Okay, so first of all, Ghana has a dedicated QA department, and which do the quality testing of any new features that are coming up. Once they have done the QA, then they provide the finished product for user acceptance testing to the particular PM who has worked on it.
Right.
So we do the UAT and we check all the cases end to end. Like we first of all define what the cases are, test cases based on particular scenarios, like taking up all the cases into place, and then we test whether each of the particular cases is working as desired or not.
Right. Got it. Got it. I think that pretty well answers it. Thanks, Preeti. One more thing I think which has come in is initially I think Ghana was building an audio streaming product, which of course is as you said, is the core bread and butter. So probably the intent of the user coming into app would be different, right? A lot of times it might be a passive use case because user might just plug in and keep listening songs. Uh, did you guys feel that as a challenge, because now moving to a product which would require a lot of face time, or I would say screen time with your app, how did the existing or the same users react to it?
Okay, so first of all, this is something additional. Like if you don't want to watch the hot shot videos, you can still continue the older experience. You can still just listen to music in the background.
Right.
But as most of the apps are trying, we also want the screen time to increase, the foreground time to increase, because ad, as the ads world would have it, you
Right.
get better prices for the ads that you show in foreground as compared to some background audio ads,
Right.
right? So we do want the users to engage more with the app instead of just putting us. I think some of the apps like YouTube don't even allow playing songs if your app is minimized. So that is where we are also coming from. We want the increase in users engagement time. When they are listening to some music, they can scroll through other things. Like we have a buzz section also where they can read articles or news sections about their favorite celebrities, just watch the photos while they're listening to music. So yeah, all those things are there for that reason.
Yeah, I must definitely say, indeed, a super app for entertainment. So, as you rightly probably termed it, right? And I think
Yeah,
as a bit when you started that there are so many products out there now who are trying to tap the user attention, right?
right.
Personally, because you are someone who has built a lot of this content, worked with users very closely, and seen the
Mm.
behavior.
Mm.
How do you see this? Like, do you feel that you will see we'll see a consolidation in that, or users will keep going to different products, or what is something that could help for these different products to stand distinct? What's your take on that?
Okay, yeah. So I think that since the industry is the same, all the apps are trying to get the same viewers, the same creators. There is a possibility for 4 or 5 apps to coexist. Some having 10% share, some having 30% share, and so on.
Right.
Uh, each of them focusing on a particular set of segment of users. They all have, right now everyone is focusing at the general audience, but they all have to find out which audience segment is working well for them. I mean, what is the segment that they can actually target and catch, which others are not targeting.
Hmm.
I think what would really matter is, like, once the basic products are in place, how do you innovate? Like, do you keep on bringing up new filters, new stickers, new engagement tools? Do you keep up having new trends, new type of videos that are created on your platform and go viral? So
Right.
virality, creators, these are all going to be very important factors in making or breaking the app.
Got it. And I think as you rightly put that point, right, different aspects, and which I think one of the, in our earlier discussions, when you also touched on this point, right, as you said, Ghana originals, right, one of the
Yeah,
attempts at bringing specific creators or specific singers and exclusive content to Ghana, right? In the
right.
same way, now I think, initially there were a few platforms, now there are many. And do you see today that these influencers also, post similar content on different platforms, or they're present on different platforms, or what kind of trend have you seen on those lines?
Okay. So can you repeat
Sure,
again?
sure.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you said, right, I think there are now so many influencers and so many platforms out there. Do you
Mhm.
see that trend that there is the same influencer who's this person is also posting same content on different platforms, or do you see the trend that a particular person is actually exclusive to a certain platform? Like, how do you see that today happening?
Okay, so today I see that influencers may not necessarily create videos on your platform. They might create videos on some platform which only has camera tools and really good filters and all. And then they would download the video from there and put it on all the platforms.
Right.
So those kind of things do happen.
Hmm.
And in those cases, it would be difficult to create a mark for yourself on a particular platform. But some top level creators, some top level influencers, they do make sure that our content is not repeated. They could be on similar lines, that they could be wearing the same clothes or be in the same location while shooting a video for a different platform, but the content would be different. So yes, there are both kind of cases if you look at the content that is there on Ghana or any other app.
I think that is a very interesting point that you shared,
Yeah.
that goes with it. Pretty much makes sense.
Hmm.
One thing that we've received is, how do badges contribute? I think you already covered this. Feel free to add. But how are badges contributing to the gamification, and what are the certain factors that you see for users to be motivated to earn those badges?
Okay, so if I talk in general sense, then I think Zomato started with it in India. They gave Zomato foodie badges and all to users. Like, those were categories that, hey, you are a Zomato foodie, and then they topped it up with real merchandise also. Like, they gave some T-shirts to those who were good content writers on their app, on their platform. So similarly, if talking about Ghana coins or Ghana Antakshari also, if you have badges which are kind of very difficult to achieve and which prove something that you already knew that you are, like, hey, I know I'm a Bollywood freak and I am the top Bollywood listener that is out there, or I'm the
Right.
top Arijit Singh fan that is out there, but there was nothing to prove it to. But then I can share that badge that I've earned, that hey, I am actually a Ghana certified Arijit Singh fan. and you are not, so in your face kind of a thing. So those kind of things, those bragging rights are what a badge enables you to do.
Right, right. No, I think that's a very interesting point, and I think just curious, personally curious, right? I think so. With this, lot of new mobile-only formats coming in, are you happy with users consuming your content everywhere? Might it be the app, might it be the website, or some of this content is exclusive to the app or mobile site? Like how have you played around with it?
Okay, so traditionally what we have observed is like when our users, the usage of all three platforms is very different: desktop, M-site, and app. On desktop, users usually go play a song or play a playlist, and then they start working on other stuff on their laptop. Like they would just minimize the tab and go to other windows, right?
Right,
The M-site behavior is mostly for discovery. Like you search something on Google browser for a particular song, and then Ghana M-site results comes at the top. Users listen to one song there, and then they get introduced to, hey, there's an app called Ghana, and they download the app from there. So it is more of, M-site is more of a very limited functionality platform for us, which is more to get that particular set of users who comes from Google web search to cap on the SEO traffic.
right.
So most of these new features you will not find on the M-site. And on web also, you would find that it is one step behind on the video and the visual products. From music or podcast point of view, it is a complete product. But when it comes to videos and horse shots, it would be one step behind, because there the audience does not present itself in the foreground too much. They just minimize the video. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. I think that really helps. One question that we've just got is, I think you touched a bit of this in your slides. How do you validate customer value and usability for the products that you are building at Ghana before starting to build the products? Specifically, basically, before getting into the dev cycle, how do you go about this?
Okay, so if I am not talking about a completely new feature, if I'm talking about improvements in the existing features, then we always bank on data. Like we track everything, and most of the cases, if we are not sure about the product, we do it in A/B testing form, and there are also switches to turn the entire feature off from the back end if it is not working.
Right.
So it is a lot of data science,
Right.
plus in some cases user feedback also. So
Right.
user feedback could also be in two forms. One is what they submit to us through HelpShift and through, Play Store comments and all. Second is what we get through user research. So user research is not something that we are able to find time for in our everyday projects, but we do that from time to time, like once in a quarter or once in 6 months, just to understand where we are right now. We do cold calling to some of our customers, like if it could be various cohorts. Like if I want to understand why users are uninstalling my app, then I would call up users who uninstalled or stopped using the app in the last 1 month, even though they were frequent users before that.
Right.
So yes, those kind of user research also we do. But otherwise, for everyday projects, it's data plus user feedback.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense. I think that really helps. I think one of the last questions that we've got is, feel free to comment. How did you go about setting the weights for each of the parameters in your recommendation engine? As there are so many parameters to actually consider. Maybe, if you could just give a top level view on what were the important parameters or what you saw as a behavior, that would really help.
Yeah. So when we talk about important parameters, then if the user is interacting with something, positive interaction, that should be the most important parameter. Recency, quality of video, and the creator quality. Like if the video is created by a top rated influencer, those are again the very important factors. The
Right.
other factors, they take kind of a backseat. Like if there is some negative interaction, if someone reports some video as inappropriate, or mark as inappropriate or dislike, then those are like some global level factors that we consider. That if a video is getting too many dislikes, then we remove it from our algo for all the users. So those kind of become a static. They don't have a weight. They have like 0 or 1 only. Others have weight based on what the usage or interaction is.
Got it. Got it. I think that really helps. And I think one last question that we will take. I think this again, I think applies to all. How do you plan an A/B test for MVPs where probably the coverage of user base could be very small? How do you go about it, or what could be a good approach at such a stage? And how do you take the decision then?
Okay. So if the coverage is really small, then maybe you can run your experiment for a longer time.
Right.
One thing is that you have, let's say, only 10,000 users and who will be using that product, and you cannot do that you have 80% control out of that and 10% to other segment or test populations there. So what you could do is that you could run it for a longer time and maybe launch it to 100% of the population, and then compare pre and post instead of comparing control and test in the same duration. You can do pre and post the experiment, and you can design your experiments in a way that you can easily switch it off for all. That once your test phase is over, you come back to your pre-state before you have finalized your analysis and taken a call on whether you want to launch it or not. So that is the way you could maybe build it out.
Makes sense. I think that is definitely helpful. I think I'm pretty sure, with the kind of time you spent specifically working on product in depth, and his inputs and learnings are definitely going to help all. I think for everyone's consumption, folks, we are going to go ahead and share a recording of the session with you all. So just give us a few days. We will revert back to you on email with the link. So we will be mostly hosting this on our YouTube channel, Truecaller for Developers. So just wait for that, and feel free to give us more feedback. And if you folks want to reach out to Preeti, I think she is on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach her out there, and I'm sure she'll be happy to take more questions from you.
Yeah, I think I've already exceeded the time that you had set for this particular session. I am sorry for that. And if you have any further questions, guys, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to reply to your queries.
Absolutely. I think it's a pleasure hosting you, Preeti, and thank you again that you accepted and came on board on such a short notice. I remember we discussing this, but really thankful to this. Let's see what all more users want to have. But yeah, definitely a very good session and good takeaways from this for folks. Let's keep doing this more often and bring more learning to the community. Hope you also enjoyed this. And thank you again, folks. We will take your leave. As said, feel free to reach out to Preeti for any questions you might have. And just give us a few days. We will upload the updated session recording on YouTube, and we'll notify you all.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Preeti. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.